It's TK Friday, and today on The Joy of Editing, it's another full edit. This time, it is a lion image, and I'm calling this one The Lion Roars Yawns. It's going to be a full edit, so sit back, relax, and welcome to TK Friday. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. It is TK Friday, my favorite day of the week. This week, it is a lion image, and this image comes to us from Sanjeev Atre. I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong, Sanjeev, so please forgive me for that. I really like this image. We have a wildlife image today. I'm excited to do this edit. By the way, if you have an image you would like me to edit on a TK Friday, you could contact me. In the description below this video, you're going to find a contact me link. Click on more to open up that description. Scroll down. You'll find that link, contact me, and we can discuss doing one of your images on a TK Friday. By the way, if you don't yet own the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, I'll have links in the description below where you can pick it up along with training videos. And right now there is a new free panel you can pick up. It's the TK print panel. So if you're into printing, I highly recommend that you pick it up. It's absolutely free. And then Sean Bagshaw made a video series to go along with this plugin to show you how to use it, so you can download that for free. And right now there is a launch sale going on over at the TK web store. Now, if you'll use my promo code DK15, that will give you 25% off anything you purchase over at the TK web store. But use my promo code, and I appreciate it if you do. If you use that code, I'll make a small commission, and this helps me to keep these TK Friday videos coming your way. You're supporting my channel when you do that, so thank you. So remember, the promo code DK15 will give you 25% off during the introductory launch sale. Thank you for using my code. Okay, then let's jump right in. Now, as always, I always start out here in Lightroom, do some really basic edits. I always like to start out generally with a linear profile, which I'm doing for Sanjeev's camera today, Canon EOS 7D Mark II. I just do some basic edits here, just a little bit of sharpening. And as far as lens corrections, I always remove chromatic aberrations and enable profile corrections. And basically that's it. Just some basic edits. I want a relatively flat image going into Photoshop. And then at this point, I just right click on the image, go to edit in, and click on edit in Photoshop 2024. But as always, I'm already there. And here we are inside of Photoshop. Now, the first thing I want to do is set myself up for success. And what I mean by that, I want to save out a subject selection and a background selection as a channel, because I'll be using those throughout this edit. To do that is very easy. Hold your Command or Control key down and find your combo or CX panel. Click on this button. When you click it, by holding Command or Control key down, you will save out a subject as a channel, and then hold the Command or Control key down again and double click it, and now you will save out the background as a channel. We still have a selection you can see by my selection indicator and the marching ants. If you have the TK selection brush, you can click this button to deselect your selection, or you could click this button here on your combo or CX panel to deselect your selection. Now, as always, the first step for me is to do a balance and contrast adjustment on this image. And this is going to be a simple one. I'm just going to come up to my TK9 multi-mask panel, click on the luminosity mask button, click on midtones 3 just to protect shadows and highlights from getting clipped. In other words, losing detail in shadow and highlights. Output that to a color grading tool. And now we can do the balance and contrast adjustments. So I'm going to start out with midtones. So I'll click on the midtone button on the color grading tool. And I just want to open up those midtones. I'm going to drag this slider to the right. Now, when you drag the slider, you don't see a change until you release the click of your mouse. And I'm going to take this over to right here, plus 31. And now I'm going to click on the shadow button, and now we're going to enrich the shadows in this image. And so I'll take this slider and we'll start to drag it to the left. And I'm going to take it to right there, minus 35. And now let's click on the highlight button, and I'll just do a slight adjustment here. I'm going to open up these highlights to right here, plus 19. Now let me shut this layer off. Here is before, And here is after, and we're off to a good start. After that first balance and contrast adjustment, I study the image, and what I want to do next is I want to look at some different zonal ranges of this image and adjust them individually, and I'll show you what I mean. But right now, that color grading tool is in my way, so what we're going to do is click this X on the color grading tool, and that just closes it, but nothing changes on the color grading layer. But I'm going to use Blend Diff to help me because Tony created zone masks inside of his Blend Diff panel. So I'm going to click this button right here. This enables us to make Blend Diff layer masks, but I'm not going to use a mask, and I'll show you what I mean, so follow me closely. But you'll notice here, we have different zonal ranges, zone 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Zone 1 is darker, and they get lighter as they move to the right. But after some experimentation, I decided that I wanted to work on zone 2, zone 3, and zone 4. And that's what we'll do, but we'll start out with zone 2. So I'll click on the zone 2 button, and now you can see all the light areas are the areas that are in this zone 2 range. And what I want to do is output this to a brightness contrast adjustment. But if I click this button right now, I will put a layer mask onto a brightness contrast adjustment. But I want to save some file space and I don't want to use a layer mask. So what I can do is hold your shift key down and click on this button right here, and you will put a brightness contrast adjustment here just with Blend Diff and no layer mask. And the other thing you can do, you can always go back and edit this Blend Diff if you don't use a layer mask. So you get that added feature, because what you can do is click this Edit Blend Diff button, and you could go and change these handles and alter that selection that you've made. So that's kind of a nice feature when you do it this way when you don't use a mask. So you can use a mask or not, it's up to you. And by the way, if you want to be reminded of what you selected, click on this magenta arrow button, and everything you see with the magenta color is the area you'll be adjusting. Pretty cool, wouldn't you say? Click this button again and we can get back to the image. And now all I want to do here is adjust the brightness of that zone 2. So I'll take this brightness slider and drag it to the left to where I think it looks good. And I think right here at -30, let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. So I've adjusted zone 2. Now I did not touch the contrast adjustment, but it's there if you need it. And sometimes I use it. I tried it on this zone 2, but I felt I didn't really need it. But you have it there if you need it. Now let's move on to zone 3. So we'll go ahead and click this button again on the multi-mask panel, and we're going to click on zone 3. And the light areas are the areas that we're looking at. So we're more around the mid-tone range here. And of course, you can adjust these slider handles if you need to, but I'm just leaving it just where it is. I think that's going to be good. Now, again, I want to output it to a brightness contrast adjustment. You could output it to any kind of output you want, but I want brightness contrast. So again, I'm going to hold my shift key down and click on the brightness contrast button. And now I have another brightness contrast adjustment layer with Blend Diff on the layer only. And again, if I click on the double arrow magenta button, we can see the area that we are affecting in magenta. Click this button again, and now we can see the image back. And now let's make an adjustment. This time I'm focusing on the background and I want to darken it up. So I'm going to take the brightness slider and start to drag it over to the left to darken. And I want to take this to right there, -37. Now let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after, but I do not like what's happening to my line, but we can take care of that because all we need to do, and this is simple, click on our layer mask calculator button on either the combo or CX panel, click on subject, and now we can subtract the subject from that by clicking the minus. And now the line doesn't get the adjustment. Now let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's the after, and now it's only affecting the background. And now for that final zone adjustment, I'll click this button again on the multi-mask panel. This time it's zone 4, so we'll click on zone 4, and the light areas are the ones we'll be affecting. Again, I want to output it to a brightness contrast adjustment layer. Holding my shift key down, I'll click this button, and we just have Blend Diff on the layer. Now, this time I experimented with brightness and contrast, and what I ended up doing was taking this contrast slider and dragging it to the right, and I took it over to right there, 51. Now, let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. It just kind of lightens up some of those lighter tones, and I like that. I think it adds some interest to the background, but it also pops out some highlights on the line, which I think looks really good. If you've never worked with these zone ranges, I highly recommend that you try them out on your images. They can be very effective. I'm so glad we set ourselves up for success because we're going to be needing some channels we saved again. So let's come up to the multi-mask panel and click on the My Channels button. This time we will click on Background, and now the background is selected. And what I want to do is click on this button right here. Let's call it a hamburger menu. A lot of people like to call these lines like a hamburger menu. Let's click this. Hit it inside here, a lot more output options. I'm going to click this button to output it to a solid color adjustment layer. And you'll notice we get a color picker. We can choose a color. Now, we have a little eyedropper tool. We can just click on the image. Like, let me click on the lion's mane, like right here. And you'll notice we've tinted our background. Now, see this little circle here? You can move this around, give it more saturation, less saturation. This is really nice. You could play around with it. And let's say we got something we like, maybe right here. We'll click OK. Now, let me shut this layer off. I'll click the eye. Here's before and here's after. But you notice the line is not getting affected because we have this mask protecting the line. Now, here's something cool about a solid color adjustment layer. If you double click on this icon right here, you open up the color picker again. You could sample another color, or you could move this circle around, or you can adjust this to any color you want. You see that? But you also have this hex code right here. And what I'm going to do is paste in the number from my notes. I'm going to right click on here and click paste. And now this matches the tint for my original edit. And now I'll just click OK. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Dave, that's over the top. Can you fix that? Well, yes, I can. And it's super easy to do. Just come to the layer opacity, click right here. You'll see the slider pops up. What I like to do is drag this slider the whole way to the left to shut off the effect, and then just slowly build it up. And when my eye likes what it sees, I stop. So I'm going to drag it to the right, and I'm going to come to right here, like 24%. Now I'm going to shut this off. Here's before and here's after, but I really love that little bit of tint in the background. I think it really helps. Now, one thing I want to point out about this solid color layer, when I use the multi-mask panel to output this, it puts it in a soft light blend mode for you. That's very important. This is the blend mode you want when you're doing something like this. And now I'm back to studying the image, and I'm looking at the line, and I think he needs a little bit of extra saturation just for the line. So what I'll do is I'll come up to the multi-mask panel, click this button to get a hue saturation adjustment layer. Now I only want it on the lion. And so what I'll do is I'll come back to my trusty layer mask calculator, click this button, click on subject, and I'll click this button to apply it. And now you'll notice the background is blacked out, meaning it won't get the adjustment, but the line is in white, meaning it will get the adjustment. And now we can make an adjustment. And to do that, I'm going to click on this picker tool on the hue saturation adjustment layer. And what I'll do is like click right here, and I'll start to drag this to the right. And you'll notice I'm working with yellows, and I want to drag this to the right and stop right here, plus 28. Let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. Just a little bit of saturation on the line. And note, we also have the tongue. And is this line yawning or roaring? I don't know. Could be either. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. So what I'm going to do is click right here. And note, we are working with magentas. I'm left clicking with my mouse, and I'll start to drag this to the right, and I'll stop like right here, plus 32. Now let me shut this layer off. Here is before, and here is after. A nice little saturation boost on the lion. And now back to studying the image. Now you notice on the back of the lion here, there's not a whole lot of saturation right in here, but we can fix that. And we have something really cool in a TK action. Don't you love the TK actions? They're so helpful. So if your actions aren't open on either the combo or CX panel, click your TK button, look for color clone, and click on the name color clone, and a color picker comes up. And then what we want to do is sample a color around this area, which would be maybe right here, that color right there, and click OK. And now with a nice soft edge brush at 0% hardness, at 100% opacity, my opacity is at 10%. I'm going to type my 0 key. That's the shortcut to get to 100%. And then just paint that color on there. You see that? Very easy. That nice soft edge brush will allow everything to blend. And I'm just going to paint down in there too. So now we added that color back. So let me go ahead and shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. See, that really matches nicely. I love the color clone action. You could also use frequency separation, but I only use frequency separation if I really need it. But a lot of times color clone gets the job done, and it's quick, easy, and I love it. The next thing I want to do is draw more attention to the line. So I want to darken the areas around the line and lighten up the line, and I'll do this in 2 steps. I'll be using a freehand vignette action for the first step and a spotlight action for the second step. The first thing we need to do is lasso the area that we want to protect from getting the vignette, and to do that, we can use the TK selection brush or the lasso tool. I'll use the lasso tool first, and then I'll show you how to do it with the TK selection brush, which I'll use for the spotlight effect. So what I want to do is just kind of lasso around the lion like this. And that's going to be the protected area. And then I'll click the freehand vignette button, and the Gaussian blur dialog comes up. I just click OK. And I'll shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. It's a little too strong, so I'm going to click right here and pull back on the opacity just a little bit to like 25%. Here's before and here's after. See how we're drawing more attention to the lion? But now let's give him a little bit of a spotlight because he is the star of this show. So this time I'll use the TK selection brush. I'll click this standard selection button right here. And with a nice big brush, I will just paint this area of the line. This is the only area I want to spotlight, and then click this button again, and we've made our selection. And now we're going to click on spotlight. And if your actions aren't open, click your TK action button and click on spotlight. A Gaussian blur dialog comes up. Just click OK. And now let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. Now it's too strong. So right now the opacity is at 30%. So I'll click right here and pull back in the slider to like right here, 16%. Now let me shut this off. Here's before and here's after. And I think the lion's going to be happy for me doing this to it. You're in the spotlight, Mr. Lion, whether you're yawning or roaring. I hope you're roaring because you're a lion. And now it is time for a basic vignette. You know, the edges of this image are all very light, so I want to get really aggressive here. I'll click on the vignette action. The Gaussian blur dialog comes up. Just click OK. And the default setting is 30% opacity in the multiply blend mode. I want to increase that a good bit. I clicked here to expose that slider, and I'm going to drag it to the right just to increase the opacity. Right there, 65%. Now let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. Yeah, that's more like it. Now back to studying the image. Now these grasses up in here to the left and to the right of the line are a little bit too light drawing the eye, so I'll do something very easy here. On either the combo or CX panel, click on the right side of the burn tool. You could click on the left, it doesn't really matter. And now with a nice soft edge brush at 10% opacity, right now I'm at 100%. I'll type my 1 key, that gets me to 10%. And what I'll do is just start to paint on these grasses here. That's 1 pass. I'm lifting my brush. I'm going to paint it a second time like that. I think that looks really good. I'm going to come over to this side and paint it once and lift my brush and paint it a second time. I might get this area right here again and here and maybe right there and there. And I think I like that. Let me shut this off. Here is before and here is after. That really helps out too. And now let's focus our attention on the eye of the lion. Let's brighten that up a little bit. That eye needs to lighten up. So I'm going to come to my combo panel, click on the plus to zoom in. I'm going to click it again. And then I'm going to hold down my space bar. My hand tool comes up. I'm going to drag down. And now I just want to dodge the eye of the lion. So we will click on the right side of the dodge tool. You can click on the left side. And now with a nice small brush, about that size, at 10% opacity, we're just going to paint on the eye on this side and this side. Get that another time. I think that looks good right there. Let me shut off this layer. Here is before and here's after. Just lightening up that eye a little bit. And I think that lion needs it. And now if we click this button, we can fit this back to screen. We're nearing the end of this edit, just a few more steps and we're done. At this point, I always like to try a color luminosity action. So I'll click on color loom and we get a black and white adjustment layer in the luminosity blend mode. And this lets us adjust the colors of the image. I'm only going to work on 2 colors. We don't have a lot of color here. So I'm going to work on red and yellows. That's it. Now I do want to say something about this color luminosity adjustment layer. It is a black and white adjustment layer in the luminosity blend mode, as I said. However, if you shut this layer off and then turn it back on, you will not notice any change. So Tony set these sliders up so that would be the case. If you just use the black and white adjustment layer in the luminosity blend mode, you would see a difference in the image. And that's the difference with this color luminosity action. That doesn't happen. I'll start out with red. So if I drag this slider to the right, I'll lighten the reds. To the left, I'll darken them. I want to darken them, so I'll take it to right here, a -9. Now here's before and here's after. And now I want to work on yellow. And what I want to do with yellow is lighten up the yellows. 2, right there, 140. Let me shut this off. Here's before and here is after. And I like that much better. And now I'm looking at the lines back. It looks a little bit too light, so I can just burn that down, and just a freehand burn will do it. So I'm coming over to my combo panel, and I'm clicking on the right side of the burn tool, which is a soft light blend mode with a blank pixel layer. The left side gives you a 50% gray layer. You could use either one, it doesn't matter, but I'm using the right side. And now with a nice soft edge brush at 10% opacity, I just want to darken down the back of the line just a little bit like so. And I might even get down into here a little bit. And then like right in this area, it's already dark. So I may just make that a little darker. Some of the muscles, I guess, in the line back in here, we'll darken that up, and here, and here, and here. And I think that looks pretty good. Let me go ahead and shut this off. Here's before and here's after. Now you always have your opacity. I'm going to click right here and the slider appears. And what I'm going to do is, I think I was a little too aggressive, and I always like to be a little aggressive, by the way. This way I can just tone this in the way I like it. And so I'm going to take this the whole way off and then just build this up slowly and stop where I think it looks really good and really natural. And I think right there, let me shut this layer off. Here's before and here's after. And that's better. Now I do want to pop out some detail on the line. And to do that, I'll use the camera raw filter. But first, hold your command or control key down and click this button right here. When you do, you'll stamp your layers together and you'll get a smart object. This way, if you don't like the adjustment you made in camera raw, you can always come back and readjust it, because you have a smart filter. And now we can click on our ACR button, and that'll take us into Adobe Camera Raw's filter. If your effects aren't open, you could click right here in this area. That'll open up the effects group. And what we're going to do is start with texture. I'll drag this to the right, and I'll take it over to 40, and then I'll go to clarity, and I just want a little bit of clarity, and I'll take it to right there, plus 11. And now it's going over the entire image, but I'm not worried about that, because remember, we set ourselves up for success at the beginning of this video. I'm going to click OK, and that sends us back into Photoshop, and click on the Layer Mask Calculator button, click on Subject, and we'll click this button to apply it. And now when I shut this layer off, here is before and here's after. Let me go ahead and zoom in so you can really see that. I'm going to click my plus button a couple times and just look at the lion. I'm going to shut this layer off. Here is before and here is after with some nice, beautiful texture. I'll click this button to fit this back to screen. And again, I'll shut this off. See if you can really see this here. Here's before and here is after. Now, if you're not happy with these adjustments, you can always double click on Camera Raw Filter. That'll send you back into the Camera Raw Filter, and then you can readjust. And now the last step, what I did was a cleanup layer. So I clicked this button on my combo panel. That gives you a blank pixel layer. Then I clicked on my remove tool, and make sure you have sample all layers checked. And I also have remove after each stroke checked. And what I did here was I just looked for anything that was annoying me, like up here, and just paint over it and let the remove tool just clean this up like this. And then see this little piece of grass right here, made the brush a little smaller, and then just like paint across here just to clean this kind of stuff up. And like this here, I don't like that. This little out of focus grass here is kind of bugging me. So I'm just looking for things. There's a couple little scars on the line. If you don't like them, you can paint over these and remove these. See this little spot here? I'm just going to paint over that. I think it looks better with it gone. And then just clean it up. And that's it. And so I save that till the end. Now, if we want to take a look at the overall before and after, let's go to our combo panel. I'll click this button right here, the before after button. We started out here and now we end up here. So I'm really happy with this edit, and I hope you give this one a try. Download the image as well as the PDF notes. Well, there it is, everyone. Another TK Friday comes to a close. I hope you enjoyed today's full edit. If you did, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. Click that bell notification icon. Click all so that you'll receive all notifications, and then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, and I will see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing.